Hey everyone! So, it finally happened. Bitcoin just closed its highest weekly candle ever. Like, in all of history. And you know what I said on X? I'm gonna say it louder for the people in the back. We're not being bullish enough. Seriously, for weeks now, I've been telling you guys, crypto is going higher. We're absolutely going to see Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. And hey, I know some of you are wondering about altcoins right now. Don't stress, we're covering that too. But first, we need to talk about what Tom Lee just told us, because this is huge. This is the catalyst that's going to push altcoins, including XRP, to some seriously big numbers. So let's dive into Bitcoin first. We're talking about the highest weekly close in history, folks. We hit a new all-time high on that weekly candle at $125,559. Right now, we're sitting pretty at around $123,000, almost $124,000. And honestly, it's beautiful to watch. Now, do I think this is just a Bitcoin show? Do I think altcoins are just gonna sit there and do nothing? No way. Altcoins are going to catch up. They always do. It's happened in every single crypto cycle. But here's what matters right now. Bitcoin keeps climbing, and when it does, it creates more liquidity for the entire space. Check this out. Bitcoin on exchanges just hit its lowest level in 6 years. I'm not making this up. This data is from Altcoin Daily, and when you look at it, it's insane. We're literally watching a massive supply squeeze happening with Bitcoin. By the way, this is super similar to what we saw with Ethereum during the short squeeze, just flipped around with supply. The point is, we're watching a squeeze unfold right before our eyes. This could launch Bitcoin to $150,000, way faster than people expect. We've talked about this before, and looking at where we are now, the market just touched 4.22 trillion again. We're about to hit those all-time highs on the chart. This is incredibly bullish, like extremely bullish. Everything's green across the board right now. The Fear and Greed Index is sitting around 59, so we're in neutral territory. The Altcoin Season Index, about 61 out of 100. You might be asking, why aren't altcoins pumping harder? Here's why. Dominance is shifting toward Bitcoin right now to fuel this big push. We actually covered this in previous videos. Now here's something really interesting. Even though Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high and recorded its highest weekly close ever, Bitcoin searches on Google Trends still pretty flat. Let me show you what I mean. If you go back to May 2021, that's when Bitcoin searches peaked. Even back in January 2021, searches were higher than any peak we've seen since. What does this tell me? Bitcoin has way more room to run. Retail investors, they're barely paying attention to Bitcoin right now. Same story with crypto searches in general. They're at massive lows. Yeah, we saw a spike to about 94 in August, but that's still lower than 2021. And crypto to buy now searches? Completely flatlined. The only time we saw any real action was back in December of last year, when the market had that nice pump. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was decent. What all this tells me is that retail participation just isn't here in a big way yet. The only search term I found with a major spike? Altcoins to buy now. And that, my friends, is where things get interesting. Now you might be thinking, wait, does that mean alt season is here? Not even close. When we talk about alt season, we're talking about altcoins going absolutely insane across the board. Let me show you what I mean. If we pull up the top 500 altcoins over the last 30 days, look at these gains. Actually, look at the lack of gains. Apart from a few coins that just recently launched, this is not alt season at all. In fact, most of the altcoin market in the top 500 is actually down over the last 30 days. So let's talk about Ethereum for a second. While Bitcoin just set that historic weekly close, Ethereum still hasn't broken above its 2021 all-time highs and closed above them. Yeah, technically we touched a new all-time high back in July going into August, but we never got a close above it. We need to see that close above the all-time highs. This is super important for altcoins, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Even if you look at XRP and most other altcoin charts, they're pretty flat right now. They're not doing much while Bitcoin's breaking records because all eyes are on Bitcoin. That's where all the focus is. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about stocks for a second. I saw something from Ryan Dietrich on X that caught my attention. When the S&P 500 makes a new high in October, which it did, the fourth quarter goes up more than 90% of the time. Think about that. I definitely think stocks are going to keep climbing higher. But here's my take. Stocks are about to get boring. I think we're going to see stocks start consolidating. And when that happens, retail investors are going to look for excitement elsewhere. They're going to flock to markets that are actually moving, markets that aren't boring. With Bitcoin hitting new highs, I believe we're about to see retail pile into crypto again. We're talking about a massive rotation of capital. So where do stocks end up by year-end? Well, Tom Lee has some thoughts on this. He said that history shows the probabilities favor the S&P 500 hitting 7,000 by the end of the year. I agree with him on this. And honestly, I think this is shaping up to be one of the most hated rallies ever. I've been watching a lot of people in this market, including some pretty big names, suddenly flip bearish at a time when you just need to look at the charts and see the structure is obviously bullish. I genuinely don't understand how anyone can turn bearish right now.
What we focus on are the facts, right? With Bitcoin, we've been analyzing the structure over the last few days and weeks, saying, look, this thing is in bullish structure. We should be very bullish. And now, we're seeing that huge push happen right in front of us. By the way, Tom Lee is also predicting a huge market rally. Here's the thing. If stocks continue higher, crypto should follow that momentum. And check this out. He actually said on CNBC that Bitcoin will make a monster move in the next 3 months. Supply shock incoming. This was back on October 2nd.
The second is monetary liquidity sensitivity, global central banks easing. That's Bitcoin and Ethereum. And seasonally strong. I think they could make a monster move in the next 3 months, like huge.
Yeah, I completely agree with him. We're already seeing that monster move play out with Bitcoin, but I think it keeps going higher, especially with that supply shock building up. Now let's focus on Ethereum, because Tom Lee mentioned this too, and I've got a video clip coming up in just a moment. But first, I need to explain why it's so crucial for Ethereum to break to a new all-time high. Let me take you back to January 2021. This is when Ethereum officially broke to a new all-time high on the higher time frame structure. We're talking about the monthly view here. When that happened, the very next month, altcoins went absolutely insane. Look at the total 3 chart. That's February 2021. Altcoins started jumping in January, but we officially broke to a new all-time high in February of 2021. Right now, we're still trailing against those all-time highs from November 2021. Technically, we're trading at new all-time highs on this chart, but what we're really looking for is a stronger impulse move. That happens when Ethereum breaks out. And honestly, it's looking like October could be the month we finally see Ethereum break to a new all-time high and close out the month above those November and December highs. We're talking about the $4,667 area. Now, if we look at the total 3 chart in terms of time frame structure, when we get that big push, and if November kicks off alt season like I think it will, we typically see some altcoins top around the 90-day mark. That would take us to about February 1st of next year. Notice how that aligns perfectly with my Q1 2026 topping theory. But here's the other scenario. If we look at when this chart officially topped out in 2021, with some altcoins running all the way to the end of the year, that's 273 days. That would put us around August 2026. And you know what? That actually makes a ton of sense. because we could see a major top across multiple asset classes, crypto, stocks, all of it, wrapping up the year.
So yeah, we could definitely run all the way into August if altcoins officially start their rally in November. It all comes down to what Ethereum does next. In my opinion, just like back in 2021, Ethereum is going to be the spark that lights the match. It's going to be the catalyst for liquidity to flow from Bitcoin into Ethereum and then into altcoins. Now, here's what Tom Lee said about Ethereum specifically. This goes back to late August. He predicted Ethereum should hit $5,500 in the next couple of weeks. And honestly, it should happen. We should start seeing Ethereum really break out this month. We should see it clear $5,500 and beyond.
Okay, last question for you, Tom. I can hear your Slack's going off. You got to get out of here. Really appreciate the time that you spent on the channel. It means a lot. Price targets for end of year for Ethereum and the S&P 500 and your logic for those two.
Yeah, I think Ethereum, in the near term, 5,500 should be happening in the next couple of weeks. But by the end of the year, I think it should be closer to 10 to 12,000 for ETH. But it's because, most of the move in crypto does come in the fourth quarter. So if you're up 35% year to date, well, if you're going to be up 200%, it's going to all happen in the next few months. And for the S&P, if the Fed follows through and begins to cut, which is our expectation, and then we get a drop in mortgage rates and the ISM turning up, and therefore financials really begin to participate, I think that's why we get to 6,800 or so on the S&P. So still a lot of upside. Of course, as you know, September is the month everyone's going to be worried about. So that's a month where you might get a pullback, but you need to be buying that dip.
So the seasonal weakness in September, you would say, would just be another opportunity.
Yes, that's right. And as you know, every pullback, everyone has been ringing the bell saying it's the top. That has always been a dip buying opportunity.
In this clip, he's talking about how we were going to see a sell-off in September. And we did, exactly as predicted. But he's also saying that Ethereum could reach $12,000 to $15,000 by year end. A lot of people are saying that's ridiculous. Listen, I don't really care how high Ethereum goes. My main focus with Ethereum is pretty straightforward. I want to see it flip those all-time highs, and initially get to somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. After that, yeah, I think it could definitely push past $10,000. But here's what really matters. Ethereum leading the charge for altcoins. When Ethereum starts moving, we're going to see a monster rally across the entire board. The Total 3 chart, which tracks altcoins, typically sees its biggest moves when Ethereum starts taking dominance away from Bitcoin. That's when we see the liquidity trickle down into the altcoin market. This time isn't different. It's just happening on a different time frame compared to typical cycles where we usually top around the fall-winter period. I'm watching this very closely, and obviously I'll keep you guys updated. But this is a really, really good start for the next wave of this cycle. Think about it. We just got Bitcoin at its highest weekly candle close in history. Ethereum looks like it's starting its rally right now, especially on the higher timeframe structure. The entire environment around crypto feels extremely bullish at this moment. So lock in and focus up, because I'd argue that altcoins should be next. Let's talk about XRP for a second. XRP has been performing really well this cycle. We're sitting around $3 right now. This next wave should take us to $5 to $7 initially, in my opinion. Could we go higher? Absolutely. We could hit that $10 plus range. I'm watching for this rally to really heat up around the end of this month going into November. And by the way, do we have to wait until the end of October to see altcoins show signs of life? Not at all. I think we'll start seeing altcoins pump around the middle of this month. Just like I've mentioned before, here's typically how it plays out. Bitcoin really heats up first. Then Bitcoin consolidates a bit. Then we see the money trickle down. It flows into Ethereum, and then we start seeing altcoins move. But listen, this is a fantastic start for Q4. I told you guys Q4 was going to be very bullish, and so far, we're off to a great start. Alright,
That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, definitely smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any updates. I'll see you in the next one.